In this video, I'll show you how I installed these prefabricated railings on my neighbor's front porch. Hey, I'm Dan, and my mom and I bought some land out in the countryside to build a house. And to help with that, we thought we should have a trailer. So why not renovate a 1949 Spartan manor? So if you want to see how these go, plus some other random DIY stuff, subscribe and follow along. So my neighbor got her house painted, and the painter ripped out the front porch railings because they were quite rotten. So she asked me to help, and we went to Lowe's Home Improvement, where we found these prefabricated aluminum railings. So that's what it could look like with two sections of railing and the aluminum post in the middle. The green tape marks where I need to cut the railings in order to make them fit in this gap. So I need to cut right there and there, so I can get an even spacing from one of these balustrades to the end. These railings come with end caps to secure them to posts, and there are different kinds for the top and the bottom rails. This is for the top rail, and this is for the bottom rail. Keep in mind that these add a ½ inch of thickness to either side of the railing. To mark my cuts, I like to use this broad masking tape, and that's because you can see immediately if you've made it go straight, because it'll line up perfectly with the other end. If you don't put it on there straight, you'll see that it doesn't match up. Don't forget to mark which side of the tape you need to cut on. Next, use a hacksaw to carefully cut along your tape guideline. And you do have a little bit of grace here because you do have those end caps or brackets to help cover up any uneven cuts. I'm having to cut these railings because the gap on the porch is about 10 feet 8 inches, and each section of railing is 6 feet. So I measured very carefully and repeatedly to make sure I was getting an even reveal on either side of these balustrades. The bottom brackets or end caps go on with 2 screws, and the top ones are secured with 4. Each section of railing comes with 2 rail supports, which are mounted underneath using this hardware. The bigger holes on the underside of the bottom rails are actually to drain water, but the small holes are where the rail supports go. Secure the plastic end caps into the lower rail using a screw. Then press on that small rectangular tubing with the other plastic end cap on the other end. Before I continue securing the railing, I just want to make sure that it looks right. And it's looking pretty good. With this first railing cut, now I'll finalize the position of that aluminum post. This will be secured into the concrete of the porch using some sleeve anchors, which you'll see shortly. And so I'm marking the location of the holes I need to drill with the Sharpie. To drill through the concrete, I'm using this masonry drill bit in conjunction with a rotary hammer. You may also be able to drill these holes with a hammer drill, but rotary hammers are much quicker, and I learned this lesson well while earthquake retrofitting my home. Went right through. So the holes I drilled into the concrete weren't exactly where they needed to be, so I'm making the holes in the post a bit bigger to accommodate for the air. Here's an example of what not to do. I drove these sleeve anchors directly into the concrete without the post in place, thinking that the bolts in the sleeves would pull up as I tightened the nuts, but they did not. So I ended up having to pound these out and put in some completely new ones. This is the correct way to use a sleeve anchor in concrete. Make sure the post is in position and drive each sleeve anchor into the hole. And these are the 3-inch sleeve anchors I used. Then simply tighten down the nut with a wrench. In this case, I'm still leaving it a little bit loose so I can make some fine adjustments to the angle. Now I'm centering the railing on the wooden post so I can center punch where I need to drill holes through this big metal bracket that's securing the wooden post. Here I'm trying to be as careful as I can to drill only through the metal and not into the post, because otherwise there won't be any wood for the screw to grab onto. This metal bracket did make things trickier because I had to cut the lower railing just a little bit shorter than the top railing. The railings did come with some screws that are well suited for securing to the aluminum post, but here I'm using wood screws to secure the railing to the wooden post. Don't forget to make sure that your railing is plumb and level before putting in any more screws. To make sure I center this railing on the aluminum post, I'm using a clamp and some shims to get even spacing from either side. Then I can use the supplied self-drilling screws to secure the railing to the post. Now I'm doing the same on the bottom, but I have to break the shims and use a couple on each side because that bottom rail is narrower. And here's a much better view of that self-drilling screw in action. Still need to tighten that. With a few turns of the wrench, that post is nice and solid. For the second section of railing, I have to be much more precise because now the post and the wooden post are already fixed and it needs to fit exactly. So I cut one side of the railing to the expected length and installed the brackets so I could then verify the cuts on the other side. So it looks like I need to cut about 1/8 of an inch outside of my tape line. As with any time that you need to get precise fits, it's always good to make conservative cuts. And here I can see that the railing is still a bit too long, so I have to remove the bracket and file a bit more off that top rail. With the bracket back on and the rail supports attached, I'm testing the fit again. And now it's just the bottom rail that is interfering with the bracket holding the wooden post. The clamp brought the bracket in tight to the post, and using a hammer and some wood to protect the rail, I was able to knock it into position. Finally, I used a level to make sure that the railing was plumb before securing it to the posts with screws. I did replace these with wood screws later. But for the aluminum post, of course, the supplied screws work perfectly. And that's 2 railings and a post installed. And I actually really like this look, so I'm considering doing it at my house too. The last step for the post was to put this little cover over the bolts, cut it to the right height, and put a cap on it. The next day, I finished off her porch with more of the same matching railing, and I think it looks really good. So if you're thinking of doing something similar, I hope this video has been helpful.